Now, on this episode of A Prepper's Life. Alright, I've got the top of that pile put in here so it can continue to compost. This is what's left right there. It is ready to go. I've already got one 5-gallon bucket of it over here to start the process, but before we start the process, we need to get the fabric down at the bottom. That roll is going in there, and that fabric has two purposes. The first purpose is to kind of help keep, grass and weeds coming up into it. The second purpose is that whenever it comes time to change this out and to move it or build a better bed, and I scoop out the soil, I'll kind of know where the soil ends and I'm not digging into just regular dirt. Let's get to it. Do not have enough. Well, I've got some shade cloth I can lay in there. That's what I'll do. Alright, well that certainly ain't perfect, but it ought to do the job. Alright, now it's time to fill the wheelbarrow with cow poop, mushroom compost. So let's get to it. So here's the idea. You got to mix these, a third compost, a third vermiculite, and a third peat moss. Now I'm going to do that in 5-gallon buckets, and the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to fill the 5-gallon bucket with peat moss, dump it on the tarp. Fill a 5-gallon bucket with compost, which is going to be half a 5-gallon bucket of the mushroom, half of the homemade, dump it on the tarp. Fill a 5-gallon bucket of vermiculite, dump it on the tarp. And this is where the labor saving idea comes in. Once it's on the tarp, you just start rolling the corners back and forth, and it mixes it all up. And it beats trying to put it all into a wheelbarrow and swish it around with a shovel or some sort of something like that. And then once it's mixed, I'm just going to put it right into the bed. Let's get to it. Next, I'll throw in a little MicroStart 60 and some rock dust. Alright, you can see how quickly that mixed up. The mushroom compost is a little clumpy. I'm not going to worry too much about it, but while I'm working with it, if I can get one in my hand, I'll crush it up and move it around a bit. But other than that, that's pretty quick. It works really well, mixes up really good. So all I need to do now is just get that over into the box, and I don't really want to try to use a shovel because I'm afraid I'll stick a hole in the tarp with it then that would just render it useless. So I'll probably use a scoop, maybe I'll use a shovel a little bit, then I'll get to a point where I can just kind of pick the tarp up and put it in there. Alright, so that's pretty much the process in a nutshell. I think I'm going to cut the vermiculite down to about half a bucket per scoop. One reason I noticed that it's a much coarser vermiculite, and also it's expensive stuff, so if you can, cut back on it. What it does is help the soil drain water, and being as big as it is, it probably doesn't need as much, so I'm going to cut that back to half a bucket per drop. Keep everything else the same and fill it up. I don't need to keep the camera running for that, so when I'm done I'll come back and let you see it. There we go.